World Universities, Part 7. Galileo Galilei, who taught at the University of Pisa, name of the city, and Padua, University of Padua, and Martin Luther, who taught at the University of Wittenberg, as did Melanchthon, who also had a humanist training. The task of humanist was to slowly permeate the university to increase the humanist presence in professional professorship and chairs, syllabi, and textbooks so that the published works would demonstrate the humanistic ideal of science and scholarship. Although the initial focus of the humanist scholars in the university was the discovery and exposition of insertion of ancient text and languages into the university, and the ideas of those texts into society generally, their influence was ultimately quite progressive. The emergence of classical text brought new ideas and led to more creative university climate, as the notable list of the scholars above attests to a focus on knowledge coming from self, from the human, has a direct implication for new forms of scholarship and instruction, and was the foundation for what is commonly known as humanities. This disposition towards knowledge and knowledge manifested in not simply the translation and the propagation of ancient texts, but also their adaptation and expansion. For instance, the Vesalius was imperative for advocating the use of Galen, but he was invigorated this text with the experimentation, disagreements, and further research. The propagation of these texts, especially within the university, was greatly aided by the emergence of printing press and the beginning of the use of vernacular, which allowed for the printing of relatively large texts at reasonable prices. Examining the influence of the humanism on scholars in medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and physics may suggest that humanism and universities were a strong impetus for the scientific revolution. Although the connection between humanism and scientific discovery may very well have begun with the confines of the university, the connection has been commonly perceived as having been served by the changing nature of science during the scientific revolution. Historians such as Richard S. Westphal have argued that the overt traditionalism of the universities inhibited attempts to reconceptualize nature and knowledge as caused by indelible tension between the universities and scientists. This resistance to change in science may have been a significant factor in driving many scientists away from the university and toward private benefactories and towards private benefactors, usually in princely courts and associations with newly forming scientific societies. Other historians find incongruity in the proposition at the very place where the vast number of scholars that influenced the scientific revolution received their education should also be the place that inhibits their research and advancement of science. In fact, more than 80% of the Europeans, more, in fact, more than 80% of the European scientists between 1450 and 1650 included the Dictionary of Scientific Biography, were universally trained, of which approximately uh, 45% held university posts. It was the case that the it was the case that the academic foundation remaining from the Middle Ages were stable and they did not provide for any environment that focused considerable growth and development. There was considerable reluctance on part of the universities to relinquish the symmetry and comprehensiveness provided by the Aristotelian system